Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the bow drill. I've got my bow drill set up right here, which I'll show to you, and I'll list off the different names for the different parts, and I'll give you a demonstration of me getting a fire going with the bow drill as well. So first of all, this part here is called the bow, and that's just a piece of paracord. It's not tight at all, and it's not too loose, and you'll see why in a minute. And that's the bow. This is my fire lighting kit. It's just a leather bag that I've made myself, and inside here is numerous different fire lighting methods. But today we're just going to be talking about the bow drill. This piece here is called the hearthboard, and this part here, this is just from an old wooden pallet. So I imagine it's got to be maybe pine or fir or maybe cedar, some sort of softwood. So that's what we're going to be using. The hearthboard should be a soft wood, which I've got here. I'm going to be using this piece, just this plank of wood, to rest it on, to keep it off the damp ground, because it's been raining very heavily here. So that's what we're going to use as a little table just to keep it on. So I'll set that to the side just now. This is the spindle, and this should be a hardwood. The reason why is because you're trying to drill into the hearthboard, and it's the hearthboard that creates the powder, the dust that turns into an ember, which will start the fire. So this needs to be strong, and this needs to be soft. And as you can see, there's some holes that I've already used, and it just sits on top, spins, and it drills into this hearthboard. This one here is a hole that I've created, and I've only just burnt in. It's not actually been used to set a fire. So that's the spindle, and that's hazelwood. This here is a bearing block. And what it does is it stops the spindle drilling into your hand. And if you think about it, if you were to hold that with your hand and it's spinning, it will just go all the way through your hand, and it won't be very comfortable at all. So that's the bearing block. And as you can see, there's a hole in it there, or not really a hole, it doesn't go all the way through, it's more like a divot. And inside there sits a shell, just a normal shell that you would find at the beach. A lot of people like to make their own bearing blocks using bearings inside there that actually swivels and rotates. But I prefer the more natural method. So that's really all you need to make a bow drill set. So you've got your bow, your bearing block, your hearth, and your spindle. 4 parts. What I'm going to do as well is just demonstrate how you would prepare the hearthboard to make a fire using the bow drill. Okay, so I'm now going to demonstrate exactly how you would prepare the hearthboard. I'll just come a bit closer. So as you can see, this one here I've just made, and I've ever so slightly just burnt it out, ready to make a fire with. To get it looking like that, what I would do is I would make a notch right there. So try and do this. Now when you're doing this yourself, you really need to be careful with the knife edge, because it can be a bit of a hassle getting this started. So just bear in mind where the cutting edge is and where your hands is. So you just make a notch like that. Like that. And then you would cut down into that line. Being very, very careful not to cut yourself. So I've carved a notch in there. Now I'll explain exactly why I'm doing this in a second. So what we're going to do now is start this divot here. And the way I'm going to do that is usually where the tip of the notch is, that's where the centre, or just back a little bit, that's where the centre of the divot is going to be. Again, really watch your fingers when you're doing this. So just start the hole and then I tilt my knife and scrape the centre away. So I've just got a little divot carved there. And now what we're going to do is make an air chamber like this. All you do is just carve into it like so. Nice and easy. Just like that. So now I'll explain exactly what goes on here. So when you've got your spindle and it's drilling into there, you're creating friction. Friction creates heat. And at the same time as creating friction, you're also drilling into this hearthboard, which creates powder, powdered wood or powdered charcoal. The charcoal falls down this little gap and into this air chamber. Air can come in from the outside, circle in about there and oxygenate it. The heat then heats up the charcoal and creates an ember. That's exactly what's going on here. It's a very simple process. You're just drilling the spindle into the hearthboard, creating powder which falls down there, and it's going to be hot. And after a certain amount of time, it starts to form together to make a clump of charcoal, and therefore you're creating an ember. So what I'll do is, using this one here that's already been bedded in, I'll show you a demonstration of getting a fire going using a bow drill. So just before we get the bow drill set up, get the tinder ready. Now what I'm using here is just dry grass with a little bit of thistledown in the centre, and that just really gets the ember glowing. Just going to make it into a little bird's nest like this. Just like that. See a little hole in there, and that's where we'll put the thistle down. This is completely natural. You get it if you think about thistle, the thistle plant, and you've got that nice purple flower on the top. That turns to thistledown round about autumn, winter time, just after the summer. So I'm going to stick that in there. It'll be nice and dry. It's basically just like cotton. It's very, very soft. It has been used in the past as pillows for comfort. So get that nice and firm in there, just like that. And I'll just set that in my tinder pouch at the side, ready to go. I'm just going to scrape away this hard charcoal piece at the end of the spindle. It's because it's been used before. And when it comes to your spindle, the part that comes into contact with the hearthboard needs to be sort of dull. Doesn't need to be sharp. Nice and dull, is to create as much friction as possible. If it was sharp, there wouldn't be much friction. But on the other end, where the spindle comes into contact with the bearing block, that needs to be sharp, because you don't want any friction on that end. So that's why you need that end to be sharp, which I'll show you in a second. This end is what comes into contact with the bearing block, and that needs to be sharp. So going to put the spindle friction side up into the paracord, twist it around so that now the friction side is pointing downward. You can hold it in your finger like that. If you let go, it's going to flip round and ping away. So until you're ready, you just hold it with your finger. Have your bearing block in your left hand ready. Your left foot holds the hearthboard in place. You wrap your left arm round your leg so that it's nice and strong and steady. Nice and slow. Try and keep the bow as parallel as possible to the ground. It's easier said than done sometimes. Just back and forth. Don't want to put too much pressure down to start with. You want to just heat it up. And this isn't a quick process. Sometimes it can be, but most of the time it's a long process which requires a lot of patience. And it flips out quite a lot. And the trick is not to panic. Just start again. As I said, it's not an easy process. The easy process is using a matchstick, which we're not going to do. A lot of people like to keep their elbow straight and just move the wrist. But again, it's easier said than done. Whatever's comfortable for you. So right now we've got a little bit of smoke. So that must mean that we're doing something right. Just going to keep at this pace. Use the whole bow. Keep that pressure down in your left foot so the hearthboard doesn't go away. See the smoke? Don't panic, reset, and go again. Going to put a bit of pressure down on the bearing block now. That looks good. So the trick is now, don't panic. You just let it smoulder away. As you can see, got some smoke there. Use a little stick just to move it away. We've got a nice breeze here, which is good. So see how that's smouldering away? That's a good thing. You don't want to rush this part. You just want it to grow. And it's starting to form into a coal. And the way I can tell that is because I can see a little bit of redness, which is good. So that's smouldering away very nicely. I like the look of that. And now I'll try and drop it into the tinder, which is sometimes easier said than done. There you go. Get a bit of air into it. Just wave it around. Need to poke it right in there.
There you go. You have fire.
A lot of people give the bow drill a bad name. They say it's really hard to do, and don't get me wrong, it's very hard if you're out in the wild and you have to find the materials to make a bow drill there and then. That can be very difficult. A lot of stuff is damp. Even in dry countries it could be damp just with the moisture in the air. So yeah, when you're out in the wild it can be very difficult to come across materials and make a bow drill and get a fire from it. But when you've got some materials and you keep them at home or in a garage or in a shed somewhere where it's dry, it's always good to take out with you, and you've always got dry materials to make a bow drill with. So I really hope you enjoyed that demonstration of the bow drill, all the different parts and materials, and a little demonstration on me getting a fire going using the bow drill and natural tinder. Of course, it's always good to get out into the wild and practice these sort of things, even if you really know what you're doing. It's always good just to hone in your skills, get out there, practice lighting a fire using natural methods rather than matchsticks and lighters. It always keeps you in tune with your skills, and if you ever do need these in a real life scenario, you're always going to be prepared and you're always going to be familiar with how to do it. So I really advise anyone and everyone to get out there, practice a bow drill, and I can guarantee you're not going to get it right first time, but with the bow drill it's just practice, practice, practice. Once you learn how it works and the concept of it, it'll become a lot easier. Thanks very much for watching, please subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.